So I want you to introduce yourself because some may know you, some may not know you. We know your wife really well.
Yeah.
She's the quiet one.
No, she isn't.
So this is Billy Sutherland. And Billy, why don't you just tell a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do.
I'm Billy Sutherland. I'm Megan's husband. Which is a really interesting turn of events because for the last 10 years, I was in school and I was at all this, our lives revolved around that, and Megan took the role of what I'm taking now, so Megan was like, oh yeah, that's Billy's wife. And now the tides have turned, and now I'm like, oh, I'm Megan's husband. So, which is fine. But I'm an eye doctor, and I'm kind of a new Christian still, although it's been almost 8 years. But anyway, so I grew up in a church that had a lot of rules and not a lot of relationship kind of things. So there just wasn't room to wrestle with stuff, I think. Anyway, I was probably petulant as a child, so I had a lot of questions and I was boisterous and maybe even ADD, and people just kind of were like, oh, I'm sure, because I know I was a pain in the butt. But anyway, the way that translated was, as soon as I got the opportunity to not be associated with that, I just left, So anyway, Christianity and really having a relationship with Jesus is kind of new to me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I still read stuff. I'm like, that seems very new to me. I grew up in a Christian home. And you have 2 girls.
Oh yeah. We have two daughters. They're 9 and 7, and they're challenging. They're pretty cool. I enjoy it. My oldest one is super frustrating because she's a lot like me, like I was when I was that age, and I just love her to pieces. But man, just stop sometimes. We had a really interesting conversation last night at the dinner table because my oldest one is always correcting people, and my youngest one is always has FOMO so bad, fear of missing out, and so we were reading from James 3 because I was just kind of had my oldest daughter was just correcting Megan and correcting Indy, and I was like, dude, what is your problem? And so I was like, what's wrong with your mouth? Can you not control your tongue? And she was like, I can control my tongue. I was like, let's see what the Bible reads about that, or says about that. So I read James about, how mighty ships are huge, these big structures, and they're powered by powerful winds, and yet the thing that controls them is this little tiny piece of wood, the rudder, and how a tiny little flame can set a whole forest on fire and cause so much destruction. And so our tongues are these little tiny organs, but they boast of great power in all of our body. They can start fights and wars and disagreements and hatred, and they're like, what? And I'm like, yeah, your tongue is a window into your heart. And they were like, I don't get it. And I was like, well, the stuff that comes out of your mouth is grown and matured in your heart. And so when you're correcting your mom, when you're correcting your sister, it's because you fear being corrected. And I looked at Indy and I was like, and when you are always asking, well, what about me? What about me? It's because you fear that you're going to be left out somehow, but you never have been. And I looked over at Megan, and Megan was like, whoa.
I won't speak right now because you're going to say something to me about my heart. No.
and then I kind of and then we were eating dinner, and I was like, man, that wasn't me who said that, I don't know who said that, so.
Spirit.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
That is cool.
Yeah.
I know their minds
Those are no, I don't think they're. I don't think their minds were blown at all. I think their minds were like, Daddy's weird.
Oh man. Oh man. Okay, so we are doing a wilderness theme at Whole Fit. And wilderness, it's fun. But when you hear the word wilderness, what comes to your mind? What do you think of?
Well, I was like, oh yeah, I mean, I like deer hunting, you know, but that's not at all what we're talking about here. So, really, Megan and I have been enduring for about 4 years now a kind of an interesting situation, and I guess that would be the wilderness that we're talking about here. And it started out as kind of like a mistake that I made clerically at work, caused this whole domino effect where I wasn't able to be on certain insurance panels that were critical to the success of my practice previously. I had a practice in the mall, and this clerical error got me kicked off of these insurances that I needed to take to maintain my standing with the company that I worked with, and it was like a federal kind of mistake, and so it ended up being that I couldn't fix it for 2 years. There was just no way to fix it for 2 years. So for like a year and change, I wasn't being paid for the work that I did. I was being paid like 30% of what we would normally make. So and so that was kind of the start of it. And then as that was kind of coming to a close, I made arrangements with a company to help me get that fixed, you know, because this kind of 2-year window was going away. And so I contracted with them, and they screwed it up. And so it was another 2 years. And at about that time, the company that I was working with had some corporate changes, and they wanted to relocate my store. And long story short, they told me that they were going to close the store for 10 weeks, and I couldn't work. And that when they reopened the store, that my space was going to be a lot smaller, and they were going to charge me a lot more. And they were already charging me a lot, like a lot. So and it wasn't going to work. It was just not feasible. So like I didn't know what to do, and I was really distressed, and I was just trying to like pray and trying to like heed God's word, and God just was like, yeah, you're done there. And I didn't want to hear that, and so, but every time I would like pray about it, it just came back. It just seemed like, yeah, you're done there. And I guess, and I don't mean to compare myself to people in the Bible, but it was like for me, it was like when God told, you know, like Abraham to leave your land and go where I tell you to go. And Abraham's like, but I got all my stuff here, you know, like, so I ended up telling the company that I wasn't going to sign the new lease, and then we were done. And I didn't have a job, and I didn't have a practice, and I didn't have like a secure income or anything like that. And so that was 2 years ago. About that time, we found out that a rental property that we have was like destroyed, and it's in Philadelphia, and so our tenants had to leave, and the property was condemned. And so in a space of a couple weeks, I lost my practice, and we found out that our rental property was going to need like $100,000 in repair, and or that it was going to be bulldozed. And it was really this weird kind of like threatening situation. And then also I broke my hand like in an accident, and right about that same time. And so I it was a lot. And so that was 2 years ago, more than 2.5 years, almost two and a half years ago. so we didn't have a job. We were going to be having to fix this property to the tune of like $100,000, and I heard we don't have insurance, so my hand was like $27,000 to fix. So it was a lot of like, what is happening?
Mm-hmm.
So then we started in the process of fixing the house, and like we was trying to find contractors to help me, and finally found some people, and they ended up like stealing the money that we paid them, like $80-something thousand or more, and the house is still not fixed. So anyway, like what ended up happening with work is that I did a lot of fill-in work, and for people, like I made relationships with people over time, and I told them that I wasn't going to be working for a period, and they were like, oh, cool, great, you can come in, because I'm going to go on a mission trip, or I want to do this vacation, and like, you can run the whole office for a week. And I just ran the office like it was my office.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I think I'm really, like, I have a gift for that,
Mm-hmm.
like to well, maybe it's just more like I'm afraid that if I don't do it that way, that people will not like me. or like, I don't want to be spoken of like, well, he came in and he slacked. Like, I just don't, I'm not wired that way. Like, if I say I'm going to run your practice, then I'm going to run it like it's mine, or I'm not going to even do it at all. I won't even say that I won't take the job if I'm not going to run it like it's mine. So maybe that's pharisaical of me. Maybe, I don't know. We'll
Another video, another time.
We'll fix that. We'll talk about that later. So like, God provided a practice for me over about 3 months later, and it did okay for a while, and so like that, I got that in October of 17, and in the summer of 18, it was really slow, and I didn't have any, we were borrowing money from my mom to pay the mortgage, and it was pretty lean, and I was through all this, I was like, man, I don't know, man, I don't know, I don't know if I can do this, like I considered like homicide and suicide, it was a lot, I was talking to people, and like I would get like to the point where like I could feel God near me, and then there was other times where I was just like so separated and far from God that it was just super dark, and so I was driving to work one day, and like I was in the truck. I didn't have the radio on. I was just going down 85, and I was just dialoguing with God, and I was just like, hey, look, man, like you don't have to do this stuff for me, but if you have something for me, like, it would be a really good thing if you could show me that now, and like I don't know what it's gonna look like, and I don't care, but like, if you have something, like, can you roll it out? And so I got to work, and we saw some patients, and like I got a phone call from a doctor at like, my store was in Spartanburg, and there was another store in Greenville that's like a monster. And so that doctor from that store called me in like 2 hours after I got to work and said, hey, I'm gonna leave, and I want to let you know so that you can have a line on this store.
Wow.
And I was like,
Roll it out.
whoa, I gotta make some phone calls. Thank you for calling. And we ended up getting the store, but the corporate people were like, yeah, we'll give you that store, but you have to keep the other one open too. And so I was like, well, how am I gonna do that? Like, I gotta be at this other store like 6 days a week, or so. Right about then, the person who called me back and said that, hey, I wanted to let you know that this doctor has just been let go from their practice, and they want 2 days a week work. And I know them really well, and I know how they work, and I was really pleased to have them on board. So I got a doctor, and then another friend of mine said, hey, I need a Saturday gig. Do you have a Saturday gig? And so I got another doctor for the Saturday. And then I got somebody called me, and I found a person that wanted to work, like a great employee who wanted to work like in a administrative role and a technical role, and so I got staff.
That's
And
awesome.
like literally the day I prayed, like, God, if you have something, can you just let me know? Like, he gave me that, and the doctors and the staff, and like it was just like, yeah, I got that for you. And so so that happened, and then things started getting, a lot better, and that was before we realized that the people in Philadelphia were stealing all our money, and so anyway, so all that's kind of rolled over the last 4 years leading up to today, where I'm with the same company who screwed up the credentialing problem with the insurances, and it's on the right track finally, and we're now with real estate and legal professionals to help with the house, and we're selling it at a loss, and so through all this, like what God has been has his finger on, I think, for me, is what do I worship? What do I serve? And like, do I want God or do I want God's stuff? And so so I've been like through all this, like God has just had people in my life, like you guys and Ferguson and Joey Middleton has been like a rock for me, man. I mean, he's such a gift, and like they're just like the Kingsmans and the Ottos and like just all these people that God is just kind of like, here, just like I'm pushing them to you, and you don't even know it, but they're gonna be like people that you can really lean on.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that like I've still dealt with like just these insane thoughts of like, I'm gonna die with this, this is gonna be the end of me. And I've bought the lies of the enemy, from time to time, and I have trouble like reconciling the ideas of being like a leader in my work and my home and in the community and in the church, or like just to serve in the role of like serving people, and then I have trouble like blending that or reconciling that with the concept of being completely and utterly dependent on God's provision.
Mm-hmm.
So like sometimes I just, my conversation with the Lord is like, God, you inspire me to like lead and serve people and be like a builder of things and a doer of things, but yet I need to be wholly dependent on what you have for me, and I struggle with that a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't know what this wilderness is about, this whole thing. And I mean, what I view wilderness as is this place where from day to day you just don't know what's going to happen next, like where you're going to get there's just no security. And really, when I went to Awaken the other day, I was talking to Jeremy, and he was like, yeah, man, we always pray for clarity, and like I'm super convicted by that, because if we have clarity, then where's faith?
Yeah.
Like maybe we need to start praying just to trust what God has for us. And I was just like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean, but it's not what I mean.
Yeah.
It's not what I mean. Like what I want when I pray for clarity, what I want is for God to like make things easy for me, and so that I can be my own provider, like so that I can be that I can have like one little butt cheek on the throne and control like this part, because I think I can do this pretty well.
Yeah. I think,